Well, good evening, folks. At least evening here in Wisconsin. We have a reader already telling us they're watching from Australia, where it's tomorrow morning, which is kind of weird. Tonight's live, we're accompanied by Charlie Kocourek, an expert in all things woodworking. Charlie, what's your degree in? What do you really like to do in woodworking? Just to kind of let people know your areas of specialization.
Well, I do, regular furniture joinery. I especially enjoy doing carving, veneering. I've done some sculpting, some power sculpting. That was a lot of fun. I like designing projects. That's actually the most fun part of the whole process for me, is designing.
Okay, so this works out well for a couple of reasons. A lot of times we've had questions on veneering and carving, and I'm an idiot, I can't answer them. So here's your opportunity, if you have questions in those categories, to get answers. And also, if you've been watching my Instagram stuff, you know I've been fighting this cold, sore throat, sinus infection thing for about a week. So it's good to have somebody else here to talk, just in case.
To take turns.
Yeah, just in case I can't actually speak for 60 minutes straight. So other than that, Krista, why don't you do a brief commercial and then give us a question.
Okay, well, as George said, we're here with George, Managing Editor of Woodworkers Guild of America, and we are here with Charlie. He's our special guest. Shoot out your carving and veneer questions for Charlie, guys. We've got lots of expertise, and we want to be able to use it. And we want to thank Titebond, who are sponsoring our video shoot. And really quickly, if you do not follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, go out and do that.
Why the heck not?
That's right. Why not?
Go out and do that, and make sure you sign up for the newsletter. It is completely free. And for any of you who are new to this, post your questions right below where you're watching this, and we will get to as many as possible.
And if you want to know more about Charlie, you do a commercial.
Yeah, I'm out there on Facebook as Charlie Kocourek or Jack Bench Woodworking. Yes, Jack Bench Woodworking. Primarily YouTube. I have my YouTube channel, Jack Bench Woodworking again. Instagram is Charlie Kocourek. Those are the main ways you can find me online.
Okay.
All right,
hit it.
Ready? First one comes from Carl. I downloaded your router bit speed chart. I have 3 routers, but they do not have speed adjustments on them. What do I do in this case? Buying a new router is not an option.
What say you?
I would say then, really safely, you only use small router bits until you can afford to get a variable speed router. That'd be my opinion.
So the deal with it is larger diameter, lower RPM. And we've talked about a little bit about these aftermarket variable speeds. And what I have been told, and it would be good, if you own a DeWalt router, call DeWalt customer service and ask them this question. But what I've been told is if you take those aftermarket variable speeds and you connect a single speed router to it and slow it down, it's very hard on the router because that router wasn't designed to run at a lower RPM. So one thing is the fan in there that keeps it cool isn't running as fast as it should. The motor overheats, and heat in motors is a bad mix.
And that actually is true. I know that.
Okay, you've heard that same thing.
Yes, and for variable speed like VFDs in industrial settings, the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would be careful of the aftermarket speed controls because it could shorten the life of your router. So net, do not run big router bits. You've got the speed chart. It's not a suggestion. It's a law. You gotta follow the speed chart.
Okay. John would like to know, can you explain the term resaw as it pertains to bandsaws? Thank you.
We can. Let's head for the bandsaw.
Let's go. We've got a resaw piece of wood right now.
Anything? Well, I'm going to take this.
Okay.
What was the? Never mind. You have the red one.
Cool.
All right. This was John, right?
Yep. The other John.
The other John.
The other John.
John must be a repeat customer. The other John must be a repeat customer. Well, so resawing, and it's not really bandsaw specific, right, Charlie? You can resaw with a handsaw, you can resaw on a table saw, you can resaw on a bandsaw, and net the operation is always the same.
You're slicing something off of a board.
And so you do a lot of veneering, do you make your veneer?
I do both. I like bandsaw and veneer. I do a fair amount of that. In fact, I was just sawing some up the other day. And I work with commercial veneer too. It depends on the application, the project. For marquetry, sometimes bandsaw veneer is easier because it's thicker, and I like the double bevel for marquetry.
What do you shoot for a veneer thickness when you're cutting your own?
Around a 16th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so the deal.
And that's finished after I've sanded.
Cut it, sand it,
drum
clean it
sanded
up.
it, yes. Finished thickness of about a 16th is what I shoot for myself.
The bottom line, the thing that makes resawing kind of weird relative to other cuts, I guess, is we're cutting through the thickness of a piece cutting through the width of a piece rather than cutting through its thickness. So this is a piece of yellow poplar. Now, to be fair to this saw, this is a 1/4 inch 4-tooth per inch blade, and I did have Boy Scouts in here the other day using this to cut handles on knives. So this might not be the best demo ever because who knows what happened when the boys. Well, that's my concern is that if they hit a little bit of the steel knife. But those qualifiers aside, let's. What's the worst that could happen? That's working a little hard. I'll give a little safety spiel here. When you're cutting, especially on the bandsaw, and you get to this stage, this is a great time to pull the wood instead of push the wood, because your hands are you're right in the line of cut here. And just keep in mind that butcher shops have bandsaws, so they're very effective at cutting meat. So about this point in the cut, I'll come around the back and start pulling. That's resaw on that chunk of poplar. Anything else to throw in there, Charlie? What did I miss?
The only thing that, when I'm doing it, I really like the magnetic feather boards, and so I will take. Stop that.
You keep talking, and I'm going to get one.
So I like to use a magnetic feather board or some kind of a feather board when I'm doing resawing. So when I put the board against the fence, I like to get some kind of a feather board against it, and preferably, if I can, one that's a taller one that'll come up higher on the board. But anything that holds it tight against the fence, really, I think you get a lot better cut.
Yep, I agree.
And it's safer too.
I agree. Good points.
All right, you guys want to head back that way?
I don't know, do we? What's the question?
I think so. I don't think I have anything with the bandsaw right now. Okay. So how about we do this? Let's walk back that way, and I will ask you this question from Howard. He wants to know what determines the right size wood screws to use on a project.
Okay. Do you got a rule of thumb you use for screws, Charlie?
I don't have a rule of thumb. No, I look at the thickness of the board, how deep it has to come. Well, first of all, how much strength do you need? If you're just putting a tiny, screwing something small on, you don't need a big screw to screw something small on. So that's the first consideration. How much strength do you need? And then how long do you want it to be? Because, again, strength, and then how much wood is there to screw into? Yeah. And then the diameter, I don't know, what do you look for diameter?
I'm going to say, as a general rule, you can go with a number 8 screw for a 3/4 inch step. And that's probably what most of us are doing, is with 3/4 inch material. Right. So a number 8 works fine for that. And to at least give you a starting point on length, I tell students any fastener, screws or brads, should be twice as long as what you're going through, provided you got enough material on the back side to receive that. So if I'm fastening a 3/4 inch thingy to a something, I want an 1.5 inch screw, because 1.5 inches is twice the 3/4 thickness.
Sounds good.
Yeah, at least it's a good starting point.
Okay, and while we're talking about screws, we have a question from Mark. He wants to know, what is the best countersink or method to use to make sure I can get the button plugs to seat over the screws flat?
Oh, so give Charlie a question, and I'm going to get a thing, and then I'll have you do it. tight shot when I come back.
Okay. All right, Charlie. John wants to know, what is the best finish to use for an end table that is really nice, built from cherry, but located in a den so it would be under heavy use?
Well, if it's something that gets heavy use, you want to use some kind of a varnish, possibly a polyurethane, some kind of a urethane. If you really have a nice setup, you can spray. Pre-cat lacquer would be good. That's a pretty durable finish. But something durable, a urethane, some kind of a pre-cat. Probably most people who are building stuff for themselves, polyurethane is very common. If you're not a snob, it is about your finishes.
Yep, great answer. All right, Krista, I'll have you, let's go back to the screw question. And if you can zoom. And now that I did that, I'm gonna do that. Because I know it's better to point with a pencil than my fat and scarred fingers. Am I still in the right spot?
Yeah, you're fine.
All right, so Mark, here's the deal. This is a tapered drill bit countersink all in one. So imagine what a screw looks like. This taper matches that screw. We need a large diameter hole for the shank of the screw to go through, a small diameter hole for the threads of the screw to bite into, and then with your plugs, this countersink is 3/8 of an inch. So I think this actually came with a stop collar that isn't currently on it. So you can drill the stop collar, which would be fastened here someplace, will stop you at the right depth, which you've predetermined for your plugs. And this is giving you a perfect 3/8 diameter hole that's also countersunk on the bottom. So it's countersunk for your flathead screw. Yeah, it's beveled on the bottom. So it'll receive your flathead screw, but then this larger diameter will receive a 3/8 plug. And you can get this in different sizes. So if you're using a 1/2 inch button instead of a 3/8, you could change this. But the tapered drill is a great way to go for screws. And this is what you want so that the plugs will seat in there correctly.
Okay. Thanks, George. All right, we've got a really big question here, guys, from Frank. Okay?
Okay.
So Frank is building
All ears.
a children's-sized picnic table using treated, 2x-something material.
Yeah.
These picnic tables will be resting on the ground. To protect the ends of the legs from premature rotting, I'm thinking of using a spray-on water sealer on the bottom and up the legs about 6 inches. Then, to protect the children from coming in contact with the treated finish of the lumber, I'm thinking of painting all the surfaces with a white oil-based primer, then finish painting the seats and tabletop with multiple colors of latex paint. Is the spray-on sealer on the legs overkill? Is the primer on the rest of the surfaces too much as well? Got all that, guys?
Here's what I would do. I'm not sure we can answer this question because I think there's a lot of it depends. I think when you build stuff out of treated, I think that they recommend anytime you cut an end, they sell stuff that you should brush on. However, I would double check that whatever lumberyard you're buying the material at, if you're getting ACQ treated lumber, check with that manufacturer to find out if that's their recommended protocol. I mean, keep in mind green treated stuff or brown treated, whatever, treated lumber is designed to be in contact with the ground for like 20 years or something like that, right? It's a
there's different levels of it.
Yeah, so it's designed out of the box to be that way. So my question for the manufacturer's customer service department would be, do I need to treat a freshly cut end that's going to live on the ground to give it more life? I kind of think you don't need to.
Probably not. Probably not. There's no harm in doing it, but it might be overkill, just like you said.
What some people will do with outdoor furniture, you know, in the case of stuff that isn't made necessarily from treated, but it's going to live outside, is they'll brush a coat of epoxy onto the end grain.
Yes.
And that prevents moisture from wicking up the end. So that would be another option. All of this is qualified by the fact that green treated lumber, you know, you get it from the lumberyard and it weighs 800 pounds because it's dripping wet.
Soaking wet.
So this is the paint part of the question that I'm not sure we can answer, which is, and honestly, I think what you got to do is build this thing. It's going to have to live outside for like a year, and I don't mean exaggeratingly a year. I mean like literally probably a year,
To dry out.
so that it thoroughly dries, because paint's not going to stick to it when it's wet. However, when you call the manufacturer to ask them about treating the ends, I would also ask them for a recommendation on the paint, because I think you're gonna run into trouble if you paint it too fast. You're
If you
gonna,
haven't bought the lumber yet, maybe go for cedar instead.
yeah,
Cedar's a reasonable priced alternative. I mean, it's a little more than treated, but you don't have a lot of those sorts of issues.
yeah, you don't have the chemical preservative.
Right.
Okay, thanks guys.
So we sort of answered it, but
Yeah.
not a,
Sort of.
Steve,
Best we could.
Steve asked, I just bought a nice compact router. Is it possible to use instead of a drill press for straight holes? If so, is there a selection of diameter to choose from?
visual aid. You want to talk about diameter of drill bits? You know where he's going there, like drill bits versus router bits?
Well, yeah, you can, but I probably wouldn't use a drill bit. I would use a router bit that's designed for plunging holes. Use probably an upcut router bit would be the ideal thing to use for that. So get the size you want and go for it.
All right, so compact router, trim router, in a plunge base. So that's the key to this, is that if you're talking about punching holes, this is a great way to do it, because what this base allows the router to do is this, straight up, straight down. Like Charlie said, if the question is, can I put a drill bit in a router, the answer is absolutely not, because they run it way too high in RPM. If the other part of that question is, can I get like a diameter of router bit comparable to the variety of sizes I can drill bits?
No.
Probably not. 5 millimeter, 1/4 inch, 3/16, 1/8 inch, but you're not going to get like comparable to a numbered twist bit set. You're not going to get that huge array of sizes. But those common diameters that I just mentioned, you can easily get those. But really the key to this is a plunge base. Some of these manufacturers with the trim routers, the compact routers, are making plunge bases for them, some are not. So it'll depend on what router you purchase.
Okay, thanks George. Harry would like advice on hanging up his chisels when he packs them away.
Okay. Well,
We're waiting for the next part of that question.
yeah,
so
I kind of was. But if that's the question, personally, I have a rack and with little dividers in it, and I set the chisels with the handle down and the pointed side up. That's how I do it anyway, against the wall. A lot of people use one of those magnetic strips. You can get it, woodworking stores or probably big box stores. Some people, was it specifically, I forgot, was it hanging it?
It says
Not in the drawer.
hanging up, yeah.
Okay, that's how I do it. What do you like to do, George?
Here, so Krista, give us a shot over here. You'd be so kind. It's like a 1x2 hardwood with holes drilled in it that will allow the ferrule of the chisel to go through, but not the handle to go through, which works to an extent. It works until you get these really big diameter chisels, and then can't see it from your perspective, but there's also a slot over here that allows those larger, did I say diameter? Larger width chisels to go through, and then they just hang on the wall, just like that. Charlie's got a great point on the magnetic strip. If you come up a little bit, or maybe you're there, you can see it already. There's magnetic strips and magnetic strips. Don't skimp on these. This is an okay one. This is a home center magnetic strip, and it kind of is barely holding on to this stuff. Woodworking specialty stores, you're gonna pay more, but you'll get a magnetic strip you could like park a car on and it'll suspend on the wall. So it's not worth, with expensive chisels, it's not worth having a magnetic strip that isn't gonna give you the confidence they're gonna stay there.
All right, thank you.
Right.
Winston would like to know, do you guys have an opinion on the best finish for mahogany?
No.
There's so many, it depends. I mean,
I guess it would depend on the project. And yeah, it depends fully on the project. Like that last question about finish, he was specifically said it was a table for heavy use. Is it going to be a table for heavy use? You want a finish that's good for heavy use. If it's going to be a picture frame or a clock that's sitting up on a mantle, Shellac is probably a great finish, but it depends on, you know, the application. It's hard to
And there's-
answer.
And you got it, and each of those products is gonna have a little bit different tone to it. So
Right.
I use a lot of water-based lacquer. It's like it's clear as water. Well, if you put that on mahogany and you like how that looks, you're done. If you want it to have more of an amber tone, you can get that from shellac under the water base, or you could use polyurethane, or you could use lacquer, or, so I mean, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, man. So it's, like Charlie said, application specific, we could guide you. But just from like what's gonna look good on mahogany, whatever you like is gonna look good on mahogany.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks, guys. All right.
Shoe
Tom wants to know, how do you store wood if you are not going to use it right away? Many times, by the time I want to use a piece of wood, it has developed a bow. Should it be supported in many locations? Is it better standing up or laying flat?
Ideally, you'd want it laying flat if you can.
You got the real estate.
Right, and otherwise, if you do store it vertically, you want it really vertical and not at a 30-degree angle.
Because that'll induce a bow.
Right, if you have it at a you know, angle 30, 45-degree angle, it's likely to get a bow over time. If you store it vertically and you're able to keep it very straight, I even have gone so far, in order to keep it straight, I've taken, like in my garage, I've put it up against the wall and I've taken a piece of rope and strung it from one stud to the next across the lumber that I'm storing, just to keep it perfectly vertical.
Oh, so it can't, so it's
Yes.
very vertical, it isn't gonna fall out.
Right, and it, more space efficient that way too.
And I use, the support is important. I think that was part of the question. If it's gonna be flat, a lot of support, yes. In this room out here, I've got a Triton wood rack on the wall, and that's got 2 horizontals. I'm storing 8-foot material on there. And it's, you know, and I don't consume my material hugely fast, but hardwoods are not bowing in between those. The supports are probably 5 feet apart, and the material is certainly not sagging in between them. So I've had great luck with that for horizontal wall storage.
Okay. Eric would like to know if you guys have an opinion on the best wood to use when you're practicing turning on a lathe.
Yep. Oh, but you want to know what it is?
Yep. If you would. Please.
Inexpensive.
I like poplar a lot.
You just have the
Yeah,
bandsaw.
I have some here. I don't think I was thinking if I had a billet of poplar, but more specifically, yellow poplar is a hardwood, but so hardwood scientific classification, but not really a hardwood like maple is. So fairly close grain, so it turns well. Way better choice than pine. Like when I've had turning students in classes or students in turning classes, one of the big fails is they get so frustrated because they throw like a 2x2 from the lumberyard on the lathe, and it's hard to get it's hard for me to get a good cut in pine because it's so porous, so open grain. So poplar is a great practice wood. Soft maple is a great practice wood. Cherry is expensive, but it turns like a beauty. So that's a great choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's just going to be what you can find in your area. But I'd stay away from ash, red oak, hard maple, pine. They're kind of inherently, take a little higher skill set to turn any of those.
Okay. Ron says he just joined and he's enjoying your videos, so thank you very
Good.
much. He's just retired and thought he would try woodworking, right? Thinking about buying a bandsaw. Do you have any recommendations?
Well,
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like the finishing question, because the first question is, how much do you want to spend? There's $300 bandsaws and there's $3,000 bandsaws.
right.
Then the next question, so here would be my flow chart of thought. 1, you got to determine your budget. 2, you got to think about what do you want to cut. The saw that we did the resaw on has a 13-inch capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe you're never intending to cut veneer or large bowl blanks or whatever, so you don't need that huge height capacity. And there are saws out there that only have a 6-inch capacity, but if all you're ever going to cut is 3/4 inch furniture parts, that's going to be fine. So you do have to determine what you're going to do with it. I've had a couple of different 1-horse bandsaws in here, and they've been fine. How many horsepower on your saw?
Oh, I've got a big, mine's 3.5 horse.
3.5 horse, and how big are the wheels?
16 inch.
So you went that route because?
Because I want to do resawing. And I do a lot of resawing. So yeah, that's what I want.
And what's the height capacity on yours?
14.5 inches.
So that's just the kind of thing, that's the kind of thought process you got to go through. So you're going to have to look at woodworking a little bit and say, well, what direction do I want to go? With a lot of the 14 inches, 15 inches, Jet makes a 14 inch, and I think Grizzly does too, that you can get it today with a 6-inch capacity, but you can add what's called a riser block later, and that increases it to 12. The Delta I used to have in here, that's what I did. It only had the 6-inch for years for me until I started turning bigger bowls. And then I got the riser block so I could cut thicker stuff.
And that works.
Oh yeah, it worked for a number of years for me. So think about that buying process or the use and go from there.
Okay, thanks so much. So we have a question from Gary, and I'm going to read it, and I don't really know if I'm reading it right, so you guys correct me, okay? When assembling through tenon assemblies or a green and green 3-finger joint frame.
So green and green like capital G.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. How do you deal with squeeze out? Note, I fume, so I cannot have any glue smears.
So the wood is fumed before assembly, but not finished before assembly, I'm guessing, because the glue wouldn't stick.
It sounds like.
So I'm not a huge fan of wiping glue with a damp rag, but I think in this case you probably got to wipe it with a damp rag, because if it's, what I'm picturing here is you got a hole in something, you got a through mortise, so you're going to put some glue inside that mortise and then push a tenon through, and my guess is going to be he's concerned about the stuff coming out the outboard side.
Just off the cuff, not well thought out, but what if you had some kind of a relief inside of the tenon? Inside of the mortise, where
Like a glue pocket.
like a glue pocket, as you pushed it through, it would prevent or help to prevent it from, I might, in that case, if it was really critical, maybe take a chisel and chisel just a little, what would you call it?
Oh, a gutter.
A little gutter,
Glue gutter
inside the mortise, so that when you push it through, that the glue might hopefully stop there. And of course, you're careful with how much you put on, and I'm sure you.
And I've done, in the vein of what Charlie's describing here, I've done and had great success with adding like a cove molding to a cabinet. You're going to add this cove molding to a cabinet. So I'll run it on the router table with a V-bit in the router table. I'll run the back of the molding over that V-bit. So it creates a glue channel, a tiny little V in the back toward the bottom of the molding. So the premise is when you put glue above that V and then stick it to the thing, the squeeze out ends up inside that V and it never drips out the bottom.
Same idea.
Yeah. So I like that idea if the scale is there. So
Right.
I think it depends, is it a mortise?
Exactly.
Or is it a mortise?
Right.
So I think the premise is sound. So if that works, I'd sure try it. A big enough mortise, if you could take a router and run a slot cutter in there, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think a damp rag, and if you got spare parts, practice first. I don't think the damp rag would mess up the fuming because you've actually chemically changed the look of the wood, so I think that would be okay.
Not sure.
Yeah.
Practice. Test.
Yeah, I would
Test.
I would test a few approaches, but I think the damp rag in this case might be an answer.
Yeah.
Maybe not the answer.
Okay, slight commercial break. We're here with George
Because
Vondriska.
we're halfway through already, buddy.
That's right.
We are.
Yeah.
It's
Man,
like more
This
than
does
half-
go
it's more
fast.
than
Yeah.
halfway. There's a
George
clock
told me
way
this
up the
goes
other
fast, and I didn't believe him. It goes fast.
it goes pretty fast. George Vondriska, managing editor of Woodworkers Guild of America, and Charlie, our guest here.
And I wanted to say, I forgot to mention earlier when you asked where you could find me. One place you can find me is on the Woodworkers Guild of America site.
Yeah, funny how that works out.
Yeah, I've done a few articles, a few videos, contributing editing for the Woodworkers Guild, so that's another place you might find me.
And speaking of, if you don't sign up for the newsletter, go out to WWGOA.com and sign up. It's completely free. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And again, special thanks to Titebond, the Pros Advantage, for sponsoring this video clip today. Okay, Lauren says, I have several hundred board feet of old wood, 30 plus years. Oak, maple, and walnut.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
I know that
Just
wood,
make friends with Lauren.
Yeah.
Lawrence,
Lawrence.
I know that wood hardens with age. Are there any special considerations for working with old wood?
Oh, man, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. No, should be fine. Should be great.
Plenty dry.
In fact, you're golden.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, hardens, yes, but not like petrifies.
No.
So I think it would be barely noticeable if you cut a piece of that 30-year-old oak and a piece of today's oak on a carbide saw blade.
No, I think it's fine.
Okay. Phil from San Antonio wants to know, his woodworking skills are minimal but trying to get better. Do you have any recommendations for types of projects that would help him learn more about basic woodworking?
I would say, first of all, what are your interests? Where do you want to go with your woodworking? I mean, do you ultimately want to end up building furniture, or do you ultimately want to end up building, I don't know, like I said earlier, clocks? Think about what you like to do, and then I would look at the elements of the type of work that you ultimately want to do and find practice pieces that incorporate those elements in simpler and smaller, scale.
Dude, pick something you like. So don't listen to us. For us to say, well, if you should build this step stool,
Right.
and then you should build this, I don't know, whatever, coffee table, and this, because maybe those projects don't fit in your house. Maybe you don't like how they look. Maybe you don't. So net, I think find a thing that you are really interested in building for yourself, and then work backwards from there, like Charlie said, to say, okay, to do this, I need to learn how to cut dados, or find a plan that's similar to that thing, so that you can work off of the plan and work it. So,
And to me, the most important thing in what I do is I want to have fun. I want to have fun with what I'm doing. So pick a
why'd
project.
you come here for this?
Well, the free food.
There was dinner involved, yes.
No, seriously, I mean, I like to have fun with what I'm doing. I want to enjoy it. I don't want it to be a drudgery. So to George's point, pick something that you want to do, something that you're interested in.
Okay.
And the rest will be easy.
Philip wants to know, do you know what the freeze point is for Titebond 3?
Nope.
32 degrees.
George knows.
Well, it's a water-based glue.
Yeah, I would have guessed
So
32,
I'm going to
but
say it's going to freeze at the freezing point, or 0 for our international friends, 0 degrees Celsius. Yeah, I wouldn't let it go below freezing. I wouldn't let it go below 32 degrees.
actually, as I think about it, absolutely.
All right. Robert
Yes, sure.
Robert wants to know, what is the best method to put a juice groove in an end grain cutting board?
CNC, baby, would be the best.
If you don't have a CNC,
A juice groove,
Oh, juice groove.
blood groove, I think is what they.
I see. Router.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you? I'm thinking maybe a plunge router, and you make a pattern and follow it with a guide bushing or something, or what? This is going to be one of those things. There's 400 ways to do.
What you suggested there is probably the safest thing. If you have a template, say the cutting board is, I don't know, 8 by 10, and you want the groove a ½ inch in, you make a template that's 1 inch smaller and use
Like a frame,
yeah.
and follow it with a guide bushing or a
Right.
plunge router.
Yeah, compensate for your guide bushing, whatever you have to do. That's one way to do it. You could use an edge guide depending on what you want that thing to look like.
Yeah, if you want it to be continuous, well, so here's the thing. So the struggle might be, technically what it should do is be like a 1/4 inch deep at this end and 3/8 at this end. So so that would be interesting. What you could do, if you could, I'm going to go back to the frame method, and if you make the frame sloped and the router follows that, you're going to have a groove that's deeper at one end than the other. I think that'd be the easiest way to pull this off but make a tapered frame, and you'll end up with a tapered groove.
If that's what you want.
if that's what you want.
Okay, we have a couple questions just for Charlie.
Oh my goodness.
Get out of the way,
I'm gonna go
George.
look at a glue bottle.
Get out of the way.
Now I'm in trouble.
Jim wants to know, Charlie, what are your feelings about using commercial iron-on glue for ironing on veneer?
I think it's great. I guess I'm not 100% familiar with commercial iron-on. Titebond 2 is the go-to glue to use for iron-on. And so you can take your veneer and coat it with one coat of Titebond 2. So I'll actually go 2 coats. Put 2 coats of Titebond 2 on there, and then you can hold it up against your project and you can just iron as you go. And some people will actually put another coat on the surface that they're ironing on too. Typically though, 2 coats on the veneer itself should work. And Titebond 2, and if there is, I guess I didn't even know there was, if there is a commercially available stuff that's specifically designed for ironing, there may be an advantage to it, but I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, and the next one is for you. It's from Phil. He wants to put veneer trim on plywood edges of a toy box. Do I take off the hinges and put on the veneer, start and stop the veneer around the hinges, or what?
I would take the hinges, I would take it off. Let me just think, you have hinges are already on the lid, and you want the veneer in between them. I would take them off. I would veneer, and then I would probably cut through the veneer where those mortises were.
Okay, and this one is a little bit weird. It's from Galen. I don't know just because of the location, but maybe you have some suggestions. So Galen is looking for some weathered oak veneer, right?
Okay.
In Southern California.
Weathered oak veneer.
Yeah.
Or what about is there a good internet?
Yeah, that's
supply
what I'm
of,
hoping.
I would say weathered oak. I don't know. I would just try some of the big veneer houses. Certainly wood online is one of the ones I use a lot.
Okay.
Let me see. It's offhand, that's the one that comes to mind. When you say weathered though, I wonder,
Veneer, right?
I would consider maybe,
George.
Playing with my electronic devices.
George is distracting me. If you can find some oak, if you're just doing some edge banding, maybe cut your own and weather it yourself. That way it's thicker, it's heavier, you got some wood there to play with, and you could do that.
Okay.
Those are what come to my mind.
What, George?
You got some over there?
Well, it's kind of serendipitous.
You were just working on that just today.
Yesterday, but yes.
See?
Well, this is red oak. This is red oak with a weathered look that came from, oddly enough, this weathered wood finish from Rust-Oleum, from Varathane, which is a Rust-Oleum company. It's crazy cool. You brush it on. You do not take the excess off. You brush it on, you leave it sit for about an hour. And talk about how nice it is.
So this must have some kind of an acid in it, or
I don't really know. If I tell you, I'll have to kill you.
Okay. Well, I don't know what's in this. I do know that it looks pretty darn good here on this board, so forget what I said. Get your regular oak veneer and then brush some of this stuff on. This looks great.
Yeah, and this is it on pine, which I think that's a pretty cool look.
That looks like weathered wood too, although it's more realistic, I think, on the oak.
Well, I think it'd be interesting to do this and then touch sand it a little bit and get some of the natural pine back through the finish there. I mean, you just got to play with it. I think this is very art, not science.
Yeah.
So put it on, mess with it, and then once you lay a top coat on it, that's going to change the look of it too when it looks wet under a sealer. So
whenever I'm doing any kind of finishing and I'm trying to shoot for something that's different, and I try to always do something different, I run test panels. I always test the finishes before I put them on the actual part that I'm working on.
Okay.
It's 8:15, so I'm going to ask for the "Where are you watching from?" part. It's my favorite part of the thing. and then it'll take people a while to respond. So let us know what part of the world you're watching from, and then hit us with another question.
All right, Larry wants to know, when turning a bowl from a small log, do you need to cut the log in half lengthwise to come up with a blank, or can you turn it from the end of the log?
Most typically you're turning cross grain, not end grain. So all of this stuff, everything up on that shelf, these are all turned with the grain going.
Sorry, I'm
You're
showing
okay.
them the shelf.
I referenced the shelf. These are all turned with the grain going this way, crossways. Part of the reason, especially when you're working with a wet log, is end grain, or end grain splits way more readily than long grain does. So if you leave that pith of the tree intact in the bottom of a bowl, it's almost certainly going to crack to a point where it's junk.
Okay. John wants to know, have either of you tried the Q-Tech planers and jointers? I understand that the helical cutting heads make them superior to other types.
No, sir. Never even heard of it.
No.
Okay.
Helical heads are great, but that particular brand I never even heard
And a
of.
lot of companies have them.
Yeah, oh yeah, you can get them with almost any manufacturer. No.
Jamie would like to know, George, how about making a video for women who are just starting woodworking and or using power
It's
tools?
a great idea.
Great idea. Sharm wants to know, what is the best way to clean buildup on saw blades that cause burning?
George has an answer. I have an answer that
That's an answer.
George has a special blade cleaning stuff from CMT. I don't know, I've heard, some people have told me the way I do it is not good, but I just use regular household cleaner and it works great.
Like glass cleaner? Or
Not
what
glass-
kind of?
Like, it's like an all-purpose cleaner. Regular all-purpose cleaner, I spray it on the blades, I wait a minute, I rinse it off, and it works quite well.
There's a variety of bit and blade cleaners in the marketplace. They're not hard to find.
Yeah.
Okay. Charles says there are several types of glue out there. Is the primary criteria for which glue to use the amount of play time before setting, or are there other considerations?
Yes.
Many considerations. So veneering, do you use a veneer specific glue when you put veneer?
Sometimes
Like
I do.
Titebond makes a veneer glue.
Yeah, and there's definitely advantages like veneer glue. It has fillers in it, so it's less likely to bleed through the open grain woods. You can use, but oh my gosh,
Well, and if you're building outside,
right?
you want something that's waterproof or water resistant.
Right.
If you're building inside, you don't need that. And the open time, which you're calling play time, is certainly a point. To talk about the Titebond products, Titebond 2 tacks, grabs, way faster than one, Titebond original or Titebond 3. And if you're good with that, cool. But if you want more open time, then don't use Titebond 2 because it tacks so fast. So it's one consideration, but I think the application is probably the bigger consideration. It's
Right.
Where's the end product going to live? If you're building a boat, you better pick a glue that's good for boat building.
Right.
All right, thank you. Patrick wants to know, what do you guys do when using a pattern bit on a router table? What's the best way to hold smaller pieces, say like a 3-inch circle or something?
Don't. That's tiny.
That would scare me.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I'd come up with some other
Some-
approach. I'm not sure what it would be. I'd have to
Well,
think about
another
it.
way, if I were doing something that small, I might double face tape that onto a sacrificial board and do it by hand around it, rather than, because something that small on a router table would scare me.
My fingers are way too close. 3-inch circle, holy buckets. Yeah, that's tiny.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be template routing that with a pattern style bit on a router table. Yeah, I just don't think there's a great way to handle that on a router table.
No, I wouldn't, I probably.
Not a safe way to handle it.
Not a safe way. Okay. Bill wants to know, when would you use a biscuit joiner for projects versus using a pocket hole jig?
Strength.
Well, that, and do you want them to show? The pocket holes are they're going to show where the biscuits won't show. And biscuits are faster too.
Yeah. And I think pocket holes get used a lot. Sometimes I think they get used maybe a little bit too much. They get used in places where they shouldn't. People are using them a little too structurally. I use them on face frames on cabinets all the time. Miles and miles and miles of face frames I've built with pocket holes. I certainly wouldn't build a chair with a pocket hole because you wouldn't have enough strength. So you think about with a biscuit, the penetration you get into each of the major pieces, that has become a loose tenon joint, which you don't get from a pocket hole. And Charlie's point of cosmetics is a great one too. If the joint is going to show two faces, you probably don't want to use a pocket hole. So you get a stronger joint from a biscuit, plus the cosmetic benefits.
Anthony would like to know, do you guys recommend spitting a spiral head on a jointer and or planer? Does that make sense?
Spitting.
It says spitting.
Fitting, I think is what it means.
It says spitting. Anthony, if you're on there, you can comment and fix that.
We talked about that a second ago, that the spiral heads on the planers and joiners are terrific. If you can afford them.
You think the question is go back and upgrade?
Yeah, that's what I presume the question is.
Yeah, maybe Anthony, if he's on, he can update it, because George does go back and answer these questions after we're done. So, Bill wants to know, in your opinions, what is the best dovetail jig? Money is not a factor. That provides that provides the most. Guys, let me try it again. In your opinion, what is the best dovetail jig that provides the best and most efficient dovetail cut?
I don't know about best and efficient. I mean, I think you got to look at capacities and capabilities. So I've cut 80 bazillion dovetail joints on a Porter Cable 4212. It's got a 12-inch width capacity, so if you're going to make blanket chests, it'll do half blinds and throughs, but the fingers are fixed. They can't be adjusted for spacing. So if you're okay with all of that, it's a great jig. I've also got a Lee 24-inch D4 or D4R, much bigger capacity. You can adjust the fingers to vary the spacing. It also does throughs and half blinds. I don't know if the Porter Cable Omni jig is even made anymore.
I don't
know. You got to think, it's kind of like the answer to the bandsaw question. What is it you want to make? If you're sticking with jewelry boxes and drawers of narrow widths, that'll help identify what jig to get. But if you want to go to blanket chests and that kind of stuff, then you're going to need more capacity, and that's going to define too. I really like the way with the Lee, that ability to adjust the spacing. With the Keller jig, I really like the way that is really bulletproof. There's less of the angst over getting the dovetails to fit than there is compared to other jigs. So a Keller jig is another good option, but I don't think you can adjust the finger spacing on a Keller. So sort of an answer, but not a great answer, but a lot of it depends.
Anthony said putting a spiral head on the jointer and or planer. So
an upgrade.
Yeah.
That's what.
And they're expensive, right? I mean, you can spend $500 just for the head.
Easy.
To put onto a 6-inch joiner. Right. I now have, I had a joiner with steel knives forever, and about a year ago went to a spiral carbide insert cutter head, and I love it. Very hugely durable, incredible surface finish on face joining and edge joining as well, but you can really see it on a face joint. So I love it. Is it worth $500 to you to add that to your machine? Only you can answer that question.
Okay, and we have to go back, Gary commented, Gary's the one that had the question about the glue streaks with fuming.
Yes.
Okay, so he says that fuming is done after the construction.
Oh.
If that changes your answer at all.
Nope. I don't know.
It doesn't change mine. I would try to find a way to prevent it from, getting out at all.
Well, but I think that's good news, because that means the tenon could come out. You could clean up as much as possible. You could do a little more sanding, because you're not going to sand off a fumed surface.
Right.
But you would be fuming if you found out later you left glue on. So
Blah, blah, blah.
Thank you.
I think our original answer still stands.
Okay. Jen wants to know, what are your best hints and tips for flawless lap joints?
Half lap joints?
It says lap, L-A-P, joints.
To answer a question, let's see
Let
if we
George
can do
catch his breath.
let's see if we can do it.
He's got another one.
Keep talking and I'll see if I can set up a little half lap.
What's the next one?
Over here.
Oh, you would like another question?
Yes.
On the jointer, do you prefer independent beds or parallelogram beds?
Oh my gosh. I'm over my head on that.
Oh.
Parallelogram.
Parallelogram, George says.
Keeps the joiner, keeps the bed closer to the cutter head.
All right.
Keeps the bed.
Don't on me.
I don't mind George. We don't even notice that table saw running over there.
Right.
You got another quick one that I can't answer?
We're down to like, which clock in this building is actually right? What time is it?
It's 7:51.
Oh, we got plenty of time. Okay.
Yeah, you have
Okay.
plenty of time. I'm looking, Charlie. That's specifically for George. That's
What did I do
not.
wrong this time?
What?
What did I do wrong this time?
You'll
No,
find out.
somebody wants to see an actual live demo of a video they ordered from you, so, or drawings maybe, it looks like, so. And
Give Charlie
another,
a question and then you can start working in this direction for.
give Charlie the question about the demo.
No, it's something else.
Yeah, I'm looking for something
Good
else.
enough.
Because a lot of them are directed directly to George right now. They're
Well,
about,
let's come this way and
Okay.
we'll do the half lap
okay,
over here.
perfect, thank you.
Good.
But maybe someone will throw another one for you.
I'm gonna get my ear things.
He said beer things?
Ear.
Not a good idea with the power tools, George.
Ear. All right, half lap. One of my favorite
That one's
joints.
actually for you.
I'm going to ask you, Krista, to just come right down on the blade. They don't need to really see me at all, which is probably their favorite part of the show, in all honesty. Half lap joint, what we want to do is get the two pieces to do this, where this is going to sit on top here, very strong. So what I'm going to do here, first thing I'm going to set the height of the cutter, and normally I would do this with a dado head. I'm going to set the height of the bit to about half the thickness of my material. And then here's the really cool part. Saw's unplugged while I'm doing all of this. I'm going to set the fence by getting this tooth, a left tooth, slightly past the edge of the material. So there's just what I call a fingernail catch of blade right there, sticking past that. Then we're ready to plug in and cut. And what I'm going to do on the first go around here is I'm just going to take I want a little rabbit on the end of this piece and a little rabbit on the end of the other, and then we'll do a test here. What we're looking for initially is the height of the blade correct? Where do you need me to be?
You're fine.
So we test the height of the blade by putting those two pieces together like this. And if these surfaces are perfectly even, the blade is exactly the right height. In this case, this face is just a little high, so my blade is a little bit low. It's low by half this amount. So that's probably, it's less than a 16th. It's maybe a 32nd of an inch. So I raise the blade a 64th. Now I'm going to pretend we did another test cut and we know that the blade is now the right height. Now when you cut the half lap, I'm going to come over, come to the fence, make a cut, come off the blade, never back up over the blade. Come back, make another cut. With a dado head, you're going to do this in 4 passes. With this blade, it's going to take 104, but you'll see how it works. The outtake never seen. There we go. blade. Pick narrower pieces. Now I'm going to skin that off. Unfortunately, we got to do the same thing all over again. Everything came out, okay, then we do this, and you have a half lap. So the deal with letting the blade stick past the edge of the material is we get this. I'd glue this together, and then after the glue is dry, come back and clean off that end grain until it's perfectly flush. And same thing here. And that's much easier to do it that way than rather than try to make them perfect from the get-go.
Okay, thanks, George.
All right.
We have one more question, and Charlie's going to take this one.
All right.
All right.
You are. This is from David. Well, I guess you guys could both, but this is from David. He's a newbie woodworking hobbyist watching from Louisiana. Okay, so he's already answered George's question. Any suggestions about working with pallet wood? I am taking the oak slats from pallets apart to refinish the face of my fireplace above the mantle. Planing the face both sides and plan to smooth the edges with my table router. Not sure what type of router bit would work best.
Well, if I were counting on the doing it on the router table, I mean, even a straight bit will probably do a good job. Some people would prefer maybe on a router table, excuse me, use an up spiral bit that would, well, depends which way your face is. A spiral bit, with the face you want, your face side, how am I trying to say this?
Good face up.
Good face up.
If it's an upcut spiral in a router table,
There you go.
because in a router table it's down cutting, because it's upside down.
Right.
But it's either for edge quality, any kind of spiral bit's going to give you the best edge. But like Charlie said, a standard straight bit, it's kind of hard to go wrong. You spin two flutes at 22,000 RPM, you get a pretty nice surface finish.
Yeah.
Whether it's straight or
and
spiral.
if you're just cleaning up the edge, you're not taking off a lot of wood, it should be good.
Yep.
Okay. Well, you guys, it's been an hour.
Thanks.
It's 8 p.m.
Wow.
Now,
fun.
I know, right? Fast. So, George, I will tell you where some of our viewers
Yay,
are watching
yay.
from, okay? So we have all over the United States, which is awesome. We also have Quebec,
Quebec.
Australia. Here's a first, Israel.
That
Wow.
is the first. Nice.
We have another first, Japan.
That is the first.
Cool.
We've got Portugal and some more Canada. You know, we've got Nova Scotia and things like that, and a couple of other Australias. So, you know, it's pretty good. I think I saw a South America as well. Yep, in South America. So
Great.
there we are.
Well, great. Welcome. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so here's what's cooking over the next couple months. let's see, I gotta think a second, because I always leave something out. A week from now, I'm teaching in Des Moines. Maybe we'll see some of you there. If you're not already signed up, everything is sold out at Weekend with Wood in Des Moines. That's May. First part of June, I'm at a Milwaukee tool event. Last part of June, I'll be in Oklahoma at what's called the Video Woodworkers Conference or thing, Video Woodworkers. That's June 23rd and 24th in Skiatook, Oklahoma, which I think is not the end of the world, but you can see it from there. That's my understanding. And then July, AWFS in Las Vegas. Just added a class in September at the Appleton Woodcraft store in Appleton, Wisconsin. And I think that's my teaching schedule as far as I can. Oh, Maker Faire, that's what I was trying to think of for June. First weekend in June, there's a Maker Faire in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'll be at Saturday, June 3rd. I'll be there all day. Anything for you like that, Charlie, coming where people can come and see your bright and shiny face?
I am kind of traveled out. I might go to the one in Oklahoma, the Video Woodworkers. I'm still not sure if I'll be able to make that. But I was in Atlanta, I was in Cincinnati, I was in Vegas, I was in Phoenix over the last few months. And except for the video YouTube one in Oklahoma.
Video Woodworkers thing.
Except for that, I'm really got to stay pretty much close to home.
As Charlie said, it's like this is the best time of year to be in this part of the country.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to leave because this is after we tolerate 20 below weeks in February, the weeks of weather that's 20 below. It's really nice to be here when it's 17
George
below.
never exaggerates on that.
No, it might have been 20.
But no, seriously, it's heaven up here in the summertime, and I love it. So.
All right. Well, Charlie, thanks for coming. You
Hey,
did a
thanks
wonderful
for inviting me,
job.
George. This was
And you're
fun.
welcome to come back
It really
anytime.
was fun.
Yeah.
And it does go quick.
It really, truly does.
All right. Well, thanks to everybody for tuning in. Thanks, Sam, for the behind-the-scenes work. Thanks, as always, to the folks at Titebond for helping to sponsor us and keep this whole thing going. Thanks to Krista for another great job on the camera. You have like something in the offing there, Krista, that we need to know, or you're just, she's rapidly doing this on her phone, so I don't know if that's like a question coming this way, or
I'm just making sure.
you're booking a flight to Jamaica.
That's
or
right.
something. Okay.
I'm booking a flight to Jamaica.
All right. Well, that's it, folks, for us.
All right, yeah, thanks for watching.
That's it.